Ambassador Kelthara had delivered ultimatums to 47 species across the galaxy. Each time, the response followed a predictable pattern: fear, negotiation, capitulation. The Galactic Concordate's demands were simple: surrender 70% of all resources, submit to Concordate law, and accept permanent military occupation. Species that refused were reduced to ash within solar cycles. Earth would be no different, or so she believed. The human delegation sat across from her in the orbital station's negotiation chamber. They were remarkably calm for a species staring down extinction. Commander Sarah Chen, Earth's representative, had listened to the 40-minute presentation of demands without interruption. Her dark eyes betrayed nothing. The two advisors flanking her, a grizzled military officer and a young diplomat, remained equally impassive. Kelthara's four eyes blinked in sequence as she concluded. "You have one standard cycle to respond. The Concordate fleet awaits your answer." She gestured toward the viewport where 300 warships hung in the void like hungry predators. Commander Chen stood slowly. She smoothed her uniform, a simple navy blue affair that seemed almost quaint compared to Kelthara's ornate ceremonial armor. The human opened her mouth to speak, and the ambassador leaned forward, already anticipating the desperate bargaining that would follow. "No." Kelthara's translator implant stuttered. Surely there was more. She waited. The humans remained standing, silent. "No?" Kelthara's voice held an edge of disbelief. "Perhaps your translator malfunctioned." "Let me clarify. The translator works fine," Chen interrupted. "Our answer is no. We refuse." The ambassador's scales rippled with what might have been amusement. "You misunderstand your position. We have 300 capital ships. Our intelligence reports Earth possesses 12. Your weapons technology is centuries behind ours. Your population stands at 9 billion. We can sterilize your planet from orbit within hours." "We understand perfectly," Chen replied. Her voice remained level, almost conversational. "And our answer remains no." "Then you doom your species to annihilation." "Perhaps." Chen collected her datapad from the table. "But you'll have to catch us first." Kelthara's translator must have malfunctioned again. "Catch you?" "This is your homeworld. Where exactly do you imagine fleeing?" The human smiled then, and something about that expression made Kelthara's secondary heart skip a beat. It wasn't the smile of someone resigned to death. It was the smile of someone who knew something you didn't. "Ambassador, may I ask how the Concordate typically conquers a species?" "We demonstrate overwhelming force. They surrender. Those who resist are eliminated." Kelthara's confusion was giving way to irritation. "Exactly," Chen said. "You've conquered 47 species, and every single one either submitted or died fighting to protect their homeworld. You've developed a very specific playbook." She paused at the chamber door. "Humans wrote a different one." 3 days later, Kelthara stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominant Truth, staring at the tactical display in mounting horror. Earth was gone. Not destroyed, gone. The planet still orbited its star, but every human had vanished. "Population reading 0, her tactical officer reported. "No life signs. No electronic signatures. Cities intact but empty." "Impossible," Kelthara hissed. 9 billion beings cannot simply disappear. "Scan again." "We've scanned 17 times, Ambassador. They're gone." The reports cascaded in from across Concordate space. Human ships, those supposedly primitive 12 warships, had struck simultaneously at dozens of worlds. But they hadn't attacked military targets. Instead, they'd hit communication relays, administrative centers, and most bizarrely food distribution networks. The damage was minimal, almost surgical, but the message was clear. Then the broadcasts began. Commander Chen's face appeared on every screen, every display, every communication device across Concordate territory. "People of the Concordate," she began, "your leaders demand you fear them. They've convinced you that their power is absolute, that resistance means death, but we're going to show you something they've kept hidden." What followed was 48 hours of carefully curated truth. Evidence of the Concordate's atrocities, testimonies from survivors, documented proof that the ruling caste hoarded resources while conquered populations starved. Plans for systematic genocide of species deemed economically unviable. Kelthara watched her carefully constructed order begin to crack. Riots erupted on 17 worlds. 3 subject species openly rebelled. The Concordate's own citizens began questioning whether the humans were truly the threat they'd been told. "Find them," she commanded. Deploy every available ship. They must have a base, a fleet, something. 9 billion beings require infrastructure. But humans, it turned out, were very good at hiding. They'd spent the last 3 years evacuating their population in secret, building scattered settlements across hundreds of uninhabited systems. No central homeworld to attack. No concentrated military to destroy. They were everywhere and nowhere. A civilization that had chosen to become nomadic rather than bow. The Concordat fleet searched for months. Occasionally they'd find a human settlement, only to discover it abandoned hours before their arrival, its inhabitants scattered again to the stellar winds. Each time they left behind more broadcasts, more evidence, more cracks in the Concordat's facade. Kelthara received the recall order 6 months after Earth fell silent. The Concordat was collapsing from within. 5 species had successfully revolted. The military was spread too thin, chasing ghosts while real rebellions burned across their empire. The humans had won without firing a shot, simply by refusing to play the game by Concordat rules. In her quarters, Kelthara reviewed Commander Chen's final broadcast. The human sat in what appeared to be a modest ship's cabin, her expression as calm as it had been during their first meeting. "Ambassador Kelthara," Chen said, as if speaking directly to her, "you asked what we'd do. You gave us a choice between submission and death. But humans have a long history of finding third options. We've been invaded, conquered, scattered, and oppressed countless times in our history, and we learned something important from those experiences." Chen leaned forward, and that smile returned. "You can't threaten someone who's already decided they'd rather live free in exile than prosper in chains. You offered us survival if we'd kneel. We chose something you've never understood, dignity. And we discovered that a species that refuses to be conquered, that adapts instead of submitting, that scatters instead of standing still, is impossible to defeat." The broadcast ended with a single word, displayed in every language spoken across the Concordat. "No." Kelthara shut off the display. She had delivered ultimatums to 47 species. 47 times she had been obeyed or had crushed resistance. But the 48th species had taught the galaxy a lesson the Concordat would never forget. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't a fleet or a bomb. Sometimes it's simply the courage to say no, and the ingenuity to make that answer stick.